Okay, so I'm going to start with this and generate blocks. So, well, welcome everybody, and putting this poll together. So I just added the classic editor area there. Sort of just wanted to get a feel for how this works. And just to be clear, GenerateBlocks requires the WordPress block editor. It will not work on classic editor. And so also the GenerateBlocks is sometimes called an add-on to the WordPress block editor. From now on, instead of calling it the WordPress block editor, which is kind of a mouthful, I'll just be calling it the block editor. There's so many other block editors additions available. I'm just going to be talking about GenerateBlocks only. So what I hope to accomplish here today is if you're currently not using GenerateBlocks, hopefully by the end of this meetup, you'll know if you want to start using it or not use it at all. And for those who are currently using GenerateBlocks, I hope you find something like an aha moment during the demo. And also, as I said, I have 8 slides talking about why should I use GenerateBlocks. And after that, we'll jump into how we use GenerateBlocks demo. And there is a pro version of GenerateBlocks that is actually activated on the site that I have. And I'll let you know during the demo when it's actually being used. And as you can see down below, you can download the PDF from these slides from the link at the bottom there. So I'm going to jump into the next. Oh boy, where's this one going? There we go. So the usual stuff. It's name, number, badge number, all that, and that's Brunhilde, the cat from the old photo taken about 85 years ago, and she welcomes you to the meetup, which is kind of fun. And let me go this way. So I'm going to talk about page builders a little bit to start with, and probably why. You probably say, well, why about page builders? Because, well, I think you'll find that the block editor add-ons, which is part of GenerateBlocks rather, took their inspiration from page builders. So let's talk about the why. And I think users wanted websites that looked like the designs that were being offered over at Theme Forest, which many of you probably know about, which debuted actually about 15 years ago. It's been a long time. I've had a number of wasted themes that I've actually purchased over there myself. So many of those themes came bundled with, you'll love this, WP Bakery Visual Composer, which started actually in 2011. And the Avada theme came out a year later with its own page builder called the Fusion Builder. A couple of years later, we had third-party developers starting to roll out their own page builders like Divi, Beaver Builder, and then Elementor outside of the Theme Forest marketplace. So there's so many active page builders out there. Just here, it's amazing. 22 active page builders, some paid only, but you can see a lot, and they're still all active. I've tried 7 of them, and I have actually sites running on Beaver Builder, Elementor, and now Bricks. And there's one little note here. This was an interesting thing that I saw from David McCann, who estimates that about 30% of all WordPress websites are using the page builder. So, well, why about page builders? Let's talk about the block editor add-ons. And so how did that come about? And so now we got is like, well, why meet up with the block editor add-ons? And I'm just going to power through. And all of these are block editor add-ons. You can see GenerateBlocks, but there's like 15 of them in the WordPress repository. And I know some of you have used them. Some of you have, I've used 4 of them. I've used the Ultimate Add-ons #2, and I've used the Cadence, and I've used Stackable also. And so there's a little history on this. The Gutenberg was available as a plugin back at the end of 2018 on WordPress 5.0. And at that time, Gutenberg, well, it was not well liked. In fact, that's an understatement. It got some horrible reviews, and Gutenberg plugin was then rolled into core a little over a year ago, and it was called the block editor at that time. The Gutenberg plugin still exists, but it's only for development work, so don't use it on any production-ready websites. So now back to the why block editor add-ons. People who've used page builders went looking for better solutions. Very soon, third-party developers again saw an opening and started building their block editor add-ons with more features. As I said, here's 15 of them that you can see right here in the repository. And you notice they came in pretty early because they all reference Gutenberg. Interesting. So I've tried 4 of these, GenerateBlocks, which we'll be talking about tonight. And I've also used Ultimate Add-Ons, number 2, Cadence, and Stackable. And I think the main reasons the block editor add-ons exist is this gap that we have in the block editor itself. And I think, well, what's that? Well, what would that be? And I said, 2 things, the box model and media queries. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the box model. And this box model has been around for 25 years, and it's been used on pretty much every website since then. And it's not something new. And so they have it defined as different parts of a box, which starts with your content. And that can be text, an image, or even another box. With padding, borders, margins, it adds up what we would call structure for your website. And if you want to know more about the box model and how it works, you can check out Kyle Cook's article. It's very, very good. And if anyone's interested, we can do a quick demo on the box model when we're done with the slides here. And I'm getting this. Here we go. That way. So what's about a media query? Well, you can think of it. WordPress actually has a query block that was available in WordPress 5.8. And a query is just asking a question. So in the case of the WordPress query block, typically it just answers the question about the number of posts that are displayed. So a media query, which is not a block, asks how wide is the device's browser window. And note the listed devices here in blue. So this is these images came from GenerateBlocks. And you can see that there's a desktop, tablet, and mobile view for their padding settings. And the padding settings have changed for each one of those. And I think that's a great addition that you have and can really utilize. And so these 3 device settings also cascade from the largest to the smallest screens. For example, if you don't edit anything in the mobile settings, it will just pick up the settings from the tablet. So that makes it very easy. You can just put your settings into the desktop and just go all the way down the line. And if you need to change something, you just can. So here's the funny thing. GenerateBlocks has 4 blocks. It's a bit of a lie. There's more going on here than what you would initially see. Obviously, there's a container, which is kind of like a group block. They have a grid, which is kind of like the WordPress's columns block. And they have a headline, which is kind of a combination of the heading block and the paragraph block, and includes SVG icons. And the buttons are from the buttons block. But the interesting thing, these are all using the box model, padding, border, and margin, and the desktop, tablet, and mobile. The grid block doesn't have any padding, border, and margin. It just has, the desktop, tablet, and mobile settings. And so the idea is that, 4 blocks is really a feature. It's not a limitation. And these 4 blocks cover most of what you need to build a website. I mean, there are other block editor add-ons that we have with over 30 blocks, which can make it difficult to master and manage, especially when you're dealing with the right side settings panel in the admin area. So I have a few links here. You can download the free version of GenerateBlocks from the WordPress repository. You'll also find a link there to their pro version. And I'll have to say GenerateBlocks documentation is great. It really is. And you can easily get access to the docs right from within the admin area. And also there are 2 YouTube video channels for both GenerateBlocks and GeneratePress. And I'll have to say, I was watching Mike Oliver's video on GenerateBlocks. That's how I started to get to really understand the power of the GenerateBlocks. And that's kind of what I have here. And I would like to get back into, let me get escape out of this. And we can hide this. And so if anybody needs to, if they have anything that they wanted to talk about, I'm going to just go through a demo of some of these things that you have. I'm also going to stop sharing the quizzes, which is staring me right in the face. There we go. Okay. So did anybody, everybody is okay with the box model and what that means? So we could just test here. So this is, I'm running GenerateBlocks. I'm running it on, GeneratePress theme, though I've tested this with 5 other themes here too. And I'm using the latest version of 5.9, which I think is absolutely great for utilizing this because of the list view. You're able to drag and drop. I'm using the latest version of PHP 8. So everything is working fine at that level. So I wanted to go over one thing that I think is really kind of very useful for getting into GenerateBlocks is the idea of your content width. Every theme that you have now that is using the customizer has a content width, whether it's 1200 pixels wide, 1100 pixels wide, 1290 pixels wide, there's a certain width. I kind of settled on 1200, and you can see if I just drag this icon, you can see it comes out to about 1200 right here. So I like a 1200 width, content width. You can change it for any theme to whatever you want, but just pick one and stick with it. And I'll show you, I'm just going to jump into the testing on the site so we can just see what that involves. And so one of the things, here we go, I like this new one. So we have two containers here, this one at the top, and I have another container here. And I'm going to start from the scratch on one thing, but I just want to show you one of the things that the container can do. Normally, when you set up a container, and that is like the group block that comes from GenerateBlocks. In fact, everything on this left side that you see is from GenerateBlocks. You can see various things that show up here and they go all the way back up to the top. This is all GenerateBlocks. There's no WordPress block editor in here, any of their specific blocks. Normally, you would set things up with a container. You'd put a grid in it, and you would stick a bunch of containers in here and then shuffle them around how you need it. And sometimes you can just put a container in and then stack the headlines that you need down here and the buttons down below. With the buttons, you get 2 buttons or 3 buttons. You can have as many buttons as you want within this container here. And you're always going to find this thing at the bottom here with GenerateBlocks, which is fine. It's not going to show up on the front end. It's just going to be available to you to actually add. So if I'm looking here, one of the things I did over here on the layout is I always go full width on that first container. And I use an inner container, and that's the content width. And I'm using 1272 only because I'm using padding to get the 36 pixels on the left and the 36 pixels on the right so that the text doesn't scrunch up to the edge of the screen. So that's why 1272 is there. And I did this one also up here. I just make sure it's set for full width. And I can actually come down here and let's go back to the block here. Let's go back. There we go, back into the container. So you can see I have tablet views and I have mobile views in here, which are really handy to have, and we can change these. And you can see the changes that I've made on this. So I use a spacing, which is a combination of, we talked about the box model. There's padding, there's margins, border size, border radius, and z-index for layering different blocks on top of one another. So I started with 96 pixels, 36 pixels to the right, 96 at the bottom, and 36 to the left. But I didn't like that for tablet because it was too big. So on the tablet, what I did is on the spacing is I changed it to 48 pixels on the top, 24 on the right to narrow it down, 48 on the bottom and 24 on the left. And then when going to mobile, I changed it again, 24 and 24. And when I mentioned about cascading, it means that I didn't have to put this in because this was already available to me in the tablet view. And that way it just kind of filters down. And also just making sure, because I actually changed the typography, the font size here, I changed it to 40. If I took it out, it looked like that, so that would be too big. And so I just moved it to 40 pixels. So you can change not just the spacing areas, but the topography also. You can also change various things in the padding in here. Like I'm in the headline here. This is actually, let me actually get back out to desktop mode. So if I'm in headline, you think that was a heading, right? This is a heading, and this was a heading. And I'm just going to start from the top for how this kind of works. It's very interesting. This heading here is this little icon and the site. And this heading here is this guy right here. And I get to stick them all on the same line. If I come up to the heading, and this one you can see is an H2. I can change this one to something else, H1, right? So if I hit H2 and if I go to spacing, I can say inline width. So it's actually putting these two headings in line. If I uncheck this, you can see it sticks this up at the top, which would be the normal distribution. So it's a really handy little thing by taking 2 or even 3 over. I have to do the same for the secondary one here and do the inline edit. When I uncheck it, I break that line. So this is one way. It's interesting. And so also you can see this again, still this is all the heading block. There's an icon over here. I can go grab an icon and I stuck this icon from an area. These are icons. And I stuck it in from the general area. I could change it to something else here, change it to that. And I have the icon set so that it's in line, and there's also center alignment. I could put it on top. I could put it down toward the bottom, wherever it is. So I just kept it on the center. I can actually remove the text. So you can actually put a headline in without any text. So you notice that text just went away. So this is an easy way to get into a SVG icon. And these are all SVGs, which are great, very performant. These are generals. And then of course they have all the social. And you can upload, you can actually cut and paste your own SVG right in here if you want. It'll do a nice job of filtering out all the stuff that SVGs don't need. There are, so if I go down to this headline, and I set this up as an H3, and I set this up with a variety of things. As you can see, there's spacing. There's got 48 pixels all the way around, just as a padding on this. And if I took this out, you can see it all scrunch up, right? So these are things that you can easily get at this point. And in tablet mode, I think the spacing, I kept it at 48, but if I wanted to, I could change it to 36. I could even change it, and you can see it just scrolls down as needed. Go back to 36, and on mobile, I put it at 24. So let me go back to the desktop. I'm just going to keep this updated here. What I have for buttons is a container. And then you can see I have a button over here, and I got a button over here. And so you can do some funny things with this if you wanted to. I said, well, why not? So the spacing, you have border radius on here. And so what I did was I just put the top left, that's T left, and put the bottom right as 5. And I put the top one as a 50. If I wanted this to be 15, it could change it. So you can change, you have access to change every little bit of the border radius. And again, you can change it for tablet. I took it off for tablet. As you can see, it squared them up. Same thing applies for mobile. And you can have colors. So on this one over here, the blue one, you can see I have a little icon again that's following this. And if I go to colors, it knows, wherever I'm synced into, it's like I'm on the button. It's the color. This is the background color. This is the border color, text color. And if I go over to hover, I can change that to, something that is gray even. So if it hovers over, it becomes gray. Let me go back to yours a little closer. And the same thing applies here. You have a different color for this. The colors are all in one grouping, which I think is really useful for it, no matter where you are. If you're here in this area height and you go to colors, you'll see you get background colors, text colors, links, and highlight colors and border colors. If I'm back up in here on the headline, I still have the same amount of things that I can deal with. It can have a background color for this too. Buttons are just a little bit more specific. But again, this is just all GenerateBlocks at this moment. So I'm just going to put a pause for a second. I'm probably best thing to do would just be to do one from scratch. I have a number of them. Is that something that you'd like to see? Just to see getting in? Okay. So again, I'll just show you real quick one thing, because well, actually, we went through all the spacing areas like this. Like, I didn't fix the spacing areas on this, so, but I'll do that from another one. So, okay, so let's update. Let's get out of this page. And of course, let's just do a new page. Oh, there you go. Publish and publish. So right from scratch here. So my feeling working with this, the best thing to do is to drop in the container block right from the get-go. Now I have, again, you see I have a couple cadence blocks in here, but I'm just going to go ahead and hit the container. And the container is just a very simple, it's like, think of it as the group block that you might use in WordPress. But I always want to go full width, go down here and set it up to full width. I'm going to pull this thing back in so I can take a look. And from here, I want to actually get over here. And as I said, I use 1272 as my content width, so I can pad things on the left and the right side. So if I come down here to padding, I can type in 96, 36, 96, and 36. And that saw that get changed. I'm actually probably easier if I put a little bit of color behind it. So let me go to the color, and I'm just going to take a little bit of, yeah. So you can see the 96 up to the top and the 36 on the left and right. So this gives me my 1200 pixel width in the middle. So the next thing that I want to do is usually always get a grid. Recommend that grid, and it gives you a choice of all these, but you can override them as you want. A lot of times I'll just put in one grid and just work from there, but I'll just go ahead and put two, which makes sense. You can see the grid here and here, and you notice that it put in two containers right below, one on each side. And the grid has a nice feature in that whatever these containers are, you can see that that container is at 50%. This container is at 50%. But if I want this one, let's say at 66, it took the other one and shoved it below it. This is based on the Flexbox model, so it's actually set for wrap whenever you do this. But I can take this container and put it back to 33. So I have one that's 66 pixels and one at 33. And you don't have to stick with these. I mean, you can actually do, let's say 40, and that would wrap that one. And if I take this one and change it to 60, it'll work so long as it totals up to 100. If I add another container, which I can do here, it'll just drop down to the bottom and keep on wrapping around. So if I take a little thing, I'm just going to hit the plus button here, and it's here where you start to put in your specific blocks, like the headline. And let's say hello again. Even my spelling is bad, but that's okay. It's hit H2. If I wanted to change this to a paragraph, which is really one of the great things, because you can just treat, this is not just a paragraph, this is a paragraph on steroids, because you get all the capabilities of the spacing, colors, icons, and everything else, which is why I actually use it for my paragraphs. But I'm going to go back to, let's put it on H1. Okay, there we go. And if I hit a return character, right, it drops me down to the next line. You notice it says paragraph. I'm just going to set in headline. Up. I have to hit the slash before I go down to headline. And at this point, I'm just going to say, no, I just want a little paragraph here. And then I'm going to click and see if my lorem ipsum is working, which it is. Good. And just drop in some stuff. And you can see it that way. And I'm going to just drop into some buttons. Again, type in /BU. And these are the buttons from GenerateBlocks. They all have a blue outline around, so you can tell which one is which. Okay. And obviously, I can always go here and take a look and grab a button, grab a headline, a container, or a grid if I need. But I find that I just type it and just gets it in quick. Let me get that sidebar. This is this list view, which is just great. I'll show you one reason why. So I'm just not going to do much with the button, but you can stack these vertically. I can put in multiple buttons here. You can stack them. Let me just drop in a new button here. Okay. So I have 3 buttons in a container. I put this one over here and I can say fill the space. Okay. So they look kind of weird, but if you wanted to, you could change the colors of one of them from this one color to this color. And you can see, and you can put spacers between them too. You don't have to be stacked totally on each side. If I wanted to, I would come down here and put a margin, which separates and pushes things away on the right side. So I'll just put 15 pixels and you can see that. If I do over here, do the same thing and put a spacer at the right side. And they all kind of even out nicely like that. So one of the things that I really love, and this is not necessarily about GenerateBlocks, but you can do, oh, that's just the best. Just being able to move things around, as needed. Just drag and drop. And it gets a little tricky sometimes about where you're dropping it in, but you'll get used to it, and it's pretty good. Now, the other thing on a container is that you can actually get a color with it too. So I'm going to have a background color. So I'm just going to put in white, just a little less. And again, you say, well, hey, it's all jammed up around there. And he said, yes, it is. So we go back to the container, back to spacing, and we add some padding. And I'm just going to hit 24. And then this little icon here says it syncs. So I got 24 pixels spaced around. If I want a little bit more, I could probably get to 36. Looks fine. I like to work in 12s. It just keeps things clean in that regard. So I have another container over here on the right side. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop an image in. This is a standard WordPress image, nothing special on this. So I'm just going to go pull up, let's see. Okay, let's get Bigfoot, so to speak. This is something I shot in Thailand. This is actually great. So what we have now is I have a container here. I have a container here with an image. So I want to take the grid and I want to give it some space in here. And so this is on the grid side, because you'll see that I still have desktop, tablet, and mobile, but I don't have anything related to spacing except for these horizontal gaps. So if I put in 48 pixels, you'll see that it spaced this out just like that. And, and in tablet, I say, maybe I just don't want that much. I just want 24. So you can do it less here. And again, mobile will just pick up the 24. As you can see, I haven't set this up because we added those margins over here. I would just remove this in mobile. Let's just remove this in mobile. So go back to 0, got rid of that one, and this one, and going back to spacing, and we take the margin out also. Oh, actually, it doubled them. Nice, interesting. So if I go back now to the container and go back to the desktop view, you see I have a spacing here, which is great. This is, you might think to say, well, this looks good, but I'd like to get it so that it sits in the center. And so that sits now in the center. I could take this and sit it at the bottom if it wants to be, but I think center looks good, and I'll kind of leave it that way. Now, remember, we had one lonely little container down here, which has nothing in it. So again, I'm just going to drop another image in. Oops, don't need a new one. And, let's pick this one here. Little concrete wall from San Francisco. So one of the things you notice is that this is jammed right up to the bottom here. It's no padding in here. And instead of actually changing padding or anything like this, we go with what they call, this is back in the grid. You go back to what you call the vertical gap. So I want the same thing. I'm going to put 48. And you notice now we have a nice kind of boxed area like this. And I'm going to just duplicate one other container right here. I'm going to take the image. I'll put a different image in. So let's replace the image. And again, the images I'm using is just standard WordPress stuff. So here we go, put some plates in. And again, what we have for this image, this container right now is set for 40. So I'm going to set this one to stretch out and go to 60. And that'll take that out like that. Now this one's not going to remove the caption there. So this one's not really going to sit that well because it's going to be different. And so let's update. Let's actually see what it looks like on the front end so you get an idea. So nice and clean, easy spacing between everything. These are just not going to work. If I set them at 50%, which is what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump back in. They'll be perfectly set. So if I click here and I can go select, it's interesting because I know it's an image and I can just select the container right there by just clicking on it, which is great. So a container, and I'm just going to say 50, come back to this one. And that's not the container. So click this, make it the container, and then just drop it back to 50. And now they're even. So I'll show you one other thing to get these things even spaced like this. So that's good. But now I have 96 pixels here. So a little marker. You can see the 96 pixels tall. You can see here we got 48 pixels wide and 48 pixels here and here. But if I go down here, it's not 96, it's 144. What happened? Well, we had set this vertical gap here for the middle, but we don't need it for this bottom here. So I was going to go back to the page. Hello. And let's go back into here. And I have to do this for both containers. One of them says here, remove vertical gap. And I'm going to take that 48, I'm going to remove it from the bottom. And you saw this thing rise up a little bit. I have to do it to both of the bottom containers. And then we update, go to the page, and then you see we got 96 even out right up here. So, and again, you can keep on adding any kind of container you want, whether it's an image, whether it's a box that you have content in, and you can put in other content. You don't have to just use their stuff, though it's great. And you can see you can build a lot of things without even getting into it. So you have to get the images, right? So, but if you had another thing you wanted to add in here, so we can say, let's take a quote. Let me get a little Lorem Ipsum there, make it at least somewhat sensible. Short quote. That's okay. Add a citation. Bob's your uncle. How's that? And so I'm just going to see. This is, again, just a WordPress. And there's I just stuck that in the middle there. So you can mix and match very easily. Now you notice what happened here is that there's so much taller than this. And so, well, how can we fix that? I can't really shorten it anymore. So one thing that you can do, which is I've done on a couple of things, is I'll go back into hello and here. And instead of using an image within the container, which is what it is, I'm going to go get the big feet later. I'm just going to remove the image, but I'm going to select the container again. And I'm going to go down here to where it says backgrounds. And of course, I can just browse for that. Put feet in. And it just is going to stretch to what it needs to be. It's put it into a cover size, it's centered, no repeats, and scroll. And these are settings that are kind of standard for putting images within containers as a background. You can change it to center left if you want. You can repeat. I've never repeated one. Let me just see. It's too big to repeat. If it was a small little thing, you would see little feet all over the image. So if I hit update and then go to build the page, you notice that it squares up because I put this into the container as a background image. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, so this is there's a lot to this, you can see, but it's still at the same time gives you a lot of capabilities, and as I said, you can mix and match with no problem. Is there any other questions at all at this time, or? I see
yes, there are questions at this time.
All right, good. Well, you should let me know. You can just start talking.
Okay, so I think that we'll call first on Rich Wersinger. who had a question about, does he need to start a new page from scratch, or can I use this plugin on existing pages before GenerateBlocks? Which I think what he means is if you've already installed, you've already started a website, you're using a regular WordPress blocks, and you install GenerateBlocks, can you still use this on any existing page?
Yes. You can mix and match. I mean, if you have a page and you've been using the group blocks and the standard WordPress block editors, you can add this in anywhere. You know, you start off with usually a section is the way to go. You know, start it off from the top with, again, I'm always recommending, let me just go back into this. I'm always recommending that you start with a container. And you don't have to use the grid and the container. If you were running 5.8, the previous version of WordPress, you don't get this drag and drop thing. Like I could just take this quote, well, let's put the quote up top here, okay? Which is, to me, is just such a great thing to deal with. You can move it around just by dragging and dropping. But you don't have to use the grid initially, but I like to, because it just makes life easier, because you never know if you have one column, and then if you don't put a grid in and you just have a container. Well, here, let me show you. It's the easiest thing to do. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to actually set a new container here. Go here, container. It puts it down the block. I'm just going to go up to the top, and it didn't make it to the top. One more time. There we go. So again, I'm going to go full screen, full width rather. I'm not going to put something in yet. I'm just going to get a little spacing in. I'm not going to go, nope, you always do with padding. And these settings are mine that I use. You don't have to use them, but I would slightly suggest using something, you know, on the right side when you do this original container. And let's see, you got a container again. I'm not going to, so I'm just going to stick in headings. And just get a button. Okay, so you notice I just have a container and stuff right down below. Now I can go to the container. I can say, just shove this. Well, hold on, they should do it differently here. This is the one thing you'll notice is that you don't have as much control as to where things go. If I hit the button here, you have to do it individually, okay? And then let me get a color here so we can see. I'll put the color down here, background color. Let's just go, this is very faint light color. And I'm going to update. And I'm not going to view the page at this point. So what happens when you have a second, you say like, oh, gee, I want a second column over here for something else. Well, you don't have the grid. So you have to finagle a grid to get it in there, which is kind of why I always like to start with a grid. But if I do say like, well, I do need that grid, so you can go ahead and drop in a grid. And of course, it shoves it down below, which is not where you want. And what I have to do is get this grid up to the container area and put it in there. Now I got all this other stuff down here. Say I had a pile of these things and I can't get it into the grid. I'm going to select one. There's a grid and there's a container, and I got to get these things into the container. So as I said, imagine that you have a whole list of these. So I'm just going to select this one, and I'm going to select this one. All right. Both of them are selected, and I can come over here and I could say group them. So I'm going to put them in a group. And now that they're in a group, I can actually manipulate the whole crowd, put it in over here, and now they're in the container and the grid. And now I don't need the group anymore, so I can click this, go back and ungroup. If you remove group, you're going to remove the actual content that you put in there, but I'm just going to ungroup, and they just put them back. So there is a way to fairly easily get back to the grid if you need it. And if you have this, you can just duplicate it, and then you, oh, it's centered again. Oh, wait, I did the button. So let me back out of that. I should put the container. There we go.
Okay, we have some more questions.
Okay.
Okay, so the first one was yes, you can do that.
Okay.
Yes, you can add, I can put a group in there. I could just stick anything from the WordPress editor. You can mix and match.
Okay. Let's see. Fada had a question. I realize the block editor is for no code and WYSIWYG, but what about customizing this box model using CSS, Fire Flexbox or CSS Grid?
Well, you can actually do code CSS. I know you know how to do it. That's for sure. One of the things that I always found is that down at the bottom, you probably know this, in the advanced area on any particular container, you can come down and in advanced and select a class. You can add a class to it and then just target that class to do something that you want with it. You don't have to use the settings that come with it, but it's certainly easier to do. Does that answer that question, Fada? Or your mic is
Fada,
muted?
go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, my question would be, how would one, and this dovetails into a question that came after me, which is, what does the CSS look like? How do you get to the CSS for what you've created so far so you can see it and perhaps customize it?
Okay, so Fada is the class here, and I've classed this container, okay? So I'm just going to update and I'm going to view the page and we'll pull it into, I think it was the second one down here. So I'm just going to go into dev tools, the developer tools I'm running Brave. And so there's a bunch of stuff down here that we can see. And I am looking in, I think it was this, if I actually inspect, you can see all the, here it is. Here's Fada. So I added a class and you can target this to do anything you want. And so if you want something specific, obviously you know how to do it. You just .fada and then put you want to do the inside container, or you can do any of the other things down here too if you want to target. So you can add this, and you could add this into the customizer.
Okay, so you can add your own classes to these
Yes.
containers and such, and these blocks.
Yeah, you can add a class to anything in there.
Right, but it doesn't automatically show you the CSS and tell you what classes it's given it generically. No,
you have to go into the dev tools and take a look, and you can see this GB is GenerateBlocks. So it's a container, and these are actually randomly generated so that they know specifically how to target this one specific thing.
The CSS is on the right too, at the
yes.
other window.
So all the CSS is here. Here's the infamous box model, which we all know and love. Can't escape it. And so, yes, you can target and turn things on and off here just to test, but I do a lot of the CSS with this also. Actually, a lot of people complain about the classes that they set up because they sometimes change from one release to the other. But I found it very easy to manage. One of the things that the Pro version does have is it's called style blocks. I think that's what it's called, but it allows you to style a button and then use it with a class. It was just very simple to actually reset. If you had a button that's blue and you wanted it to be red throughout the entire website, and you have 40 buttons to go through and deal with, you can actually just do it right within GenerateBlocks Pro and change the button that you made, in the back end, and say change it from blue to red, and then automatically all buttons will show up as red. I mean, I do a lot of CSS, so I actually like just doing it, in the customizer and the style sheet, in the child theme. I'm not running any child themes here at all at this point. Does that answer the question, Fada? Because you only can see it at the front end.
Okay.
Yeah, that answered it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Fada. I had a question from Sue Bailey, who question is, what was that extension you're using in Brave where you can see the red lines and sizing? And I had a question about that too. I'm like, what's Brave?
Brave is a browser. It's a Chromium browser. I've used it now for about a year or two. You know, I still use Chrome, but I use Chrome just because I sandbox it with my YouTube videos and I don't want them tracking me all over the place. So I'm not logged in at Brave. It's using the Chrome dev tools. And so it works pretty nice. It's another Chromium browser. But as far as that little funny thing, you're talking about this thing?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah, it's great. This is a Apple, you know, up here. It's called the Pixel Snap. I don't know if it's available on a PC, but it is a thing that you can get in. I don't know if you can get it in the you know, App Store, but it works really great, and I use it daily. The only thing you find yourself using, if you have it set and you say, "Oh, great," and now you can't scroll, you can't move because you have to get rid of it. So it's a Control Command Shift F. That's what I use. So I use it all the time. And also, as far as just finding out how big something is, you can always use on Apple this and just drag to find out, well, how big is this area here? And you can actually see, you know, the height and the width. And then you hit escape because you don't need to take a snapshot of it. And that's a Command Shift 4.
Command Shift 4, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. So so if I wanted to take a snapshot here, boom, it pops it up down here. And there it is. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, I use that Pixel Snap all the time.
okay. And that's just that comes with the Brave Chromium browser.
Yes. There's many. I mean, Microsoft has their Edge browser. It runs on Chromium. There's a Valdi. I don't know, there may be even others. There's a couple of them that are running the Chromium browser. Firefox has its own rendering engine. And that would be, it's not using Chromium browser. And
I've never heard of Chromium browsers. My
it's
first
not,
time.
I shouldn't say it's a Chromium, it's their rendering tool, how they render HTML for the website. And they've actually, it's open source. And so Microsoft says, hey, we don't need to deal with this anymore. Just get it from Chrome. And they do. You know, and so they use the same rendering engine. Brave uses the same rendering engine. Safari has its own, you know, which is unfortunate in some ways. And then also Firefox has its own, Gecko, I think they call it. They, you know, they each have their own way of displaying and how they, and this is some of the incompatibilities you get with one browser to the other. So as I said, I use Brave, but, you know, it's been good.
Okay.
But clarification, Snap Pixel doesn't come with Brave. It's an extension.
Yes, it's for the computer, for the Apple, right? So,
Well, but you can install it in Chrome. You can install it in Brave. It
Okay.
isn't automatically a part of Brave. Is what
Right.
I'm saying.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this, I mean, it may be an extension, you know, that you can use within a browser, but I use this all the time on everything. And so this is the Pixel Snap is that one that has the sizing in it, you know.
And it's just an Apple extension.
It's not, yeah, it's an application.
Okay. Okay, perfect.
That's all it is. And I don't know if it wasn't originally in the Apple Store. I don't know if it still is, but I purchase it anyway. You know, it's just because I use it every time. All
Okay.
the time. There's that one. Yeah. So and also I think I really want to show you some things that you can do, and I want to show some things
You have a
that,
couple more questions.
okay, great.
Okay, so Gift says, can GenerateBlocks be used with any WordPress theme without conflicts?
Any modern WordPress theme, yes. I can actually, so this is green, right? So let's go into the themes. And I have Astra, let's activate that. And go back to the theme, and oh, that's another one. So let me go back to here. There it is. That's the Astra theme. You can tell by the different color.
Okay.
I've tested a number of them, and these are all ones that have really good quality customizers. Like Bloxy is another one that I have used in the past, and I think is really great. It's got so many features with it. It's kind of nuts. What was it? Hello, that was it, right? There it is. looks
Okay,
virtually, they all look the same. One of the things that you notice though is that the colors that are in Generate Press are variables, and they're variables set for Generate Press. So if you change themes, you may not have those variables set up, and all of a sudden the colors that you had will be not there, which is it's an interesting thing. I wanted to take that up with them. So basically what I've done is every time I've seen a variable, I've changed it to an actual hex code. So you can actually see that the hex codes stay the same throughout, as opposed to, Generate Presses, CSS variables that they use for colors.
okay.
So I'm just going to get back to the theme of choice. I use bricks, but that's my own thing.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you, Joe.
What's that?
A gift said,
I'm saying thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So
There's
again,
now Lisa St. Rose has a question. There's a plugin called Block CSS, and you can write CSS per block, so you can actually select the group block and target the elements inside.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, Bloxy is a great theme. It's one of the most recent themes that I've seen, and it was designed for blocks. They really did a great job, and it's probably the most feature-rich theme that I've seen out there. You can do so much with just the free version. So
Can I clarify what that was? Because it wasn't really a question. I was responding to someone who wanted to do Flexbox, kind of edit the Flexbox.
Yeah.
So with this plugin, it's called Block CSS. So when you target a block in the theme, you have a panel to write CSS just for that block. So you can target the group block and then actually do Flexbox in there.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I use it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a theme that I know about. I haven't really utilized it. I'm into a different thing, as far
It's
as
a plugin. It's a plugin.
Oh.
It works with any theme.
This is a Bloxy plugin.
No,
No,
it's a plugin called Block CSS. When you install it, it adds
Oh,
another
okay.
panel where you can
Okay.
write CSS per block. I've used and the word selector is in there, and that word selector is the variable for your
Yeah.
block. So if you
Great.
have like this group block and you've got these buttons in it, so I can go selector and then dot class or whatever those buttons are, and I'm automatically targeting the button and styling it and stuff. It gives you a little bit more granular
Right.
reach.
And it'll work with any
Yes.
WordPress block.
Yes,
Great.
I've used it everywhere.
Can you throw that into the chat?
I
as
did.
far as the link you did?
yeah, it's in the
Okay.
chat.
Okay, excellent. That
Yeah,
sounds
you
good.
play with it and come back and let me know what you've done with it.
Okay. Yeah, I kept on thinking you were talking about block C with the
No.
theme. Okay, I get it.
Okay, and I think I've got, people can look through the
I think
through
Mike
the
Noter has
comments
his hand up.
themselves.
Yeah.
But I think we had a question from Michael Noter.
Yes, a couple quick ones that should be easy for you, Doug. Doug, thank you. This is great. I've already picked up several things. I've been using it for a little while.
Good.
But one thing I've struggled with, and I don't know if you were explaining that before, is that you create a container, and let's just say I put a 2-column grid, and then I fill it with some content. A little bit later, so well, I don't want a 2-column grid. I want a 3-column grid.
Mm-hmm. So
do you turn the grid into a group and then create a new, and then drag it up into the new container?
No, I'll show you. It's actually pretty simple to just put a new container in. So let's say here, right? I have 4 containers.
Okay.
Right, and then they wrap. That's by default.
Is that a 4 container?
It's
grid?
4 containers, correct?
Okay.
So I'm just going to fold this up. Actually, I'm going to delete that, so I don't need that up there. Okay, so here I have the grid, and I've got 4 containers.
Okay. All right.
And so if you want another container, you can just click it, and you can just hit this, and it'll copy it over. It duplicates this as a container. Now it's going to push everything around.
That's the flex part, right?
Yeah, well, and so if I do that, so boom, it shows it shoves it down to the bottom because it couldn't fit anything up into the top. So now I have this container down here, and I can say, well, just make it 100 pixels, full width, right? And
Okay,
then
so Okay, so when you just add a container, you're in essence just adding an extra column
Yeah.
in the grid.
Extra column. Yeah, they don't call
What if
them
you wanted to go?
columns.
What if you
Yeah.
want to go the other way? You want to go down to 3?
Well, if you want to, it's easy
Yeah.
enough to delete. You can actually take
Okay.
this container here and you can just come down and say, remove the container.
Or
and-
move it.
and
Okay, I got it.
click this
Okay.
And remove that.
Excellent,
container.
excellent. Thank you. And the next thing I wanted, and this may be for later or not for, but the Z index, the interior and exterior Z index, is that
Mhm.
part of this block? I don't really know how that works. It sounds like it's for layers.
Yeah, let me.
We don't have to do that now. I can.
Okay, yeah, I
Okay.
do have something set up with some Z index, which you
Okay.
can actually take a container and layer it over another container.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it's a nice effect. You see it quite a bit. And this
Yeah.
is
If you like,
very
you want
easy to do that.
images to float over each other like corner.
Right.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, Doug, we had only one more question.
Okay.
The question is, once, at least that's I can notice, once you add an image block, can you flip, rotate, crop the picture in the block like you can with the WordPress, regular WordPress block editor?
Well, if you have the WordPress block, you can, and you do something with that WordPress block, it'll work within that container. The container doesn't do anything to the actual image. It just holds the image in there. So, you know, I to be honest with you, I've been using, if I need an image that needs to do some stuff, I'll actually run Stackable, which is another big add-on. And I'll just remove everything except for the image block, which I think is great. I don't think I'm running it here, but I'm not sure you're talking about, you know, because I always found that the WordPress, you know, this is the WordPress. You can do rounded, sure.
No, but I mean, on like, if you have an image that's, you put up an image, it's like, oh gosh, I don't really need the top or bottom of this, or you can crop it.
I'm the one who asked the question. So like the nice picture you have from Thailand, which I believe is one of those great statues, that's the feet of the Buddha.
Yes.
Once it's in there, can I take it and can I rotate it so it's so that the feet are at the bottom of the picture instead of at the side?
You can rotate in the media library.
But not in the block. You can't do it within the block.
Well, let me hold on 1 second. Let me just refer to something here. So if I have this container down here, right? Now this gets into you know, what they call effects. Effects is a pro version portion of this. And so you have lots of capabilities. I can turn on, I'll just do this real quick. So I have, you know, close. So I have a transform, and I can come down here and add a transform, and I can say choose rotate. Let's see if
This is only for background images, right?
No, this is an actual image.
Oh, well, cool.
This is a container with that image. And I'm not sure how it works, but you can see I turned it 90 degrees. And this is paid for. All these transforms that you have filters. I love it. You know, I found it very, very useful. And there's a couple of other things that are great too. So
and what is that paid for plugin that you're talking about?
it's the GenerateBlocks Pro.
GenerateBlocks Pro.
Yeah, and it's a. Let me see if I have. Yeah, okay, here we go. Pricing. GenerateBlocks Pro. It's you know, they have it for 1 site, 10 sites, 250 sites, and they're yearly. There's no lifetime deal. I just picked up the personal one because I wanted to test it out, and I'm gonna, you know, I'll bump it up to 10, you know, when I get there. I think it's a really great tool for a number of reasons, and I'll show you why if you want to know. One of the things that you can do, I'm just going to, let me just get out of here. It's going to ask me to update. Yes, leave. Okay. So this is a home page that I kind of put together from templates that are part of the pro version, like this one. And these are your angles, you know, you can make these wavy. You see that, Marianne?
I do see that, yeah.
Okay. And then here you have your hero image. This again is all GenerateBlocks. And this one is free. There's nothing doing in here. This one is also free. There's nothing in here that is paid for. That's a paid for area. I did add a little hover effect. I don't know if you can see it, but you can see there's kind of this orange glow around it when I hover over this. I don't know if you can see it out there, but it does. And the other thing is that, again, a paid for version, when you hover over it, you can push it up and put some, box shadow around it. So those are things that you can do with the Pro version. But I would like to select a GB Pro. And again, I'll show you one other thing you can do with the version. So I did this. This one, I actually said GenerateBlocks Pro has added the red overlay to the image at the bottom. And you can tell because it's a fixed image and you can see the red start to creep up into the sky, which is kind of funny. This is done without anything of Pro. It's just, again, a question of how you want to stack these offsets. Mike, I know that was something you wanted to know. They actually made extra columns in here. Here's one where there's that overlay we talked about, where you can, and actually what I did is it has a little opacity back to it. It's a little dull. When you hover over it, it brightens and you can see the box shadow jump out at you too. So those are the kind of effects here. Here you got a little box shadow here, and not much. This is the Cadence Gallery, which I think is great. I wish that there was a better gallery. I'm not a big fan of the WordPress gallery, but so anyway, I stuck it in. It's the only active block in Cadence that I have at the moment. So I detuned them all. And this is that comes down to, so again, the idea about doing things that are a little bit out of the norm like this. So you see the button here, right? It's purple, sort of, right? So is this one.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go back up and look at global style. So I have a button, it's standard. And you can see this is a Pro version. Okay, so I want to select this button here, which is great. Let me get the button actually, and I'm going to change the color. Okay, I'm not going to change anything else, but I'm just going to change it to blue. And you can see the variable that shows up, which means that it's only going to work with, so I'm just going to wiggle it to change it. So it's back to blue now, right? And I'm going to update. So one of the things you have is this global style, and there's button is labeled GB button standard. And so this is my standard button that I have. And so what I do, if I go back to, I have a hard time getting around the stop share. So let me get back. So that's a standard. And if I go back to GB Pro, and let me see, should refresh. There's a blue button.
Okay.
There's a blue button. So that to me is great because I can define a button, the styling of it, and then just have this set up. And so how this actually works on this side is you go back to this particular page. I'm just going to go in here and I have this. If I click this, you notice it says use global styles over here. Again, this is a paid version. So if I say, well, maybe you can make it a pill button. Okay, that's it right there. So I have 2 different styles of buttons. I could have 10 different styles of buttons if I wanted to. If I change the pill button, this would back there in the global styles, this would get changed. And if I turned it off, then again, it just becomes whatever there. It's got nothing. So anyway, I thought that was a pretty good thing, and you could do this with containers also. You can have your own style container all the way through as far as the padding, margins, and things of that nature. So this was here. Let me just update this so it stays blue, as they say. Okay.
And we have another question that came up, and I think the answer is going to be simple yes. It's also from Gift. Can GenerateBlock be used with posts?
Yes. So
Same,
yeah, it can be. It is the WordPress block editor. So let me actually go to a page. Let's see, where is it? I have a blog page. Ha ha ha. Let me go here. Okay, pause it. Nope, I just want to get to the blog page. Blog post page. Okay, so let's just view it. So this is what GeneratePress does, for their standard blocks. And I just put a bunch of stuff in here, baloney. So if I click here, this is what generates, and they have all these things. This here is all just generate blocks. And so this is in a post. So you can put whatever you want in here. So if I'm going to go to this post and take a look. And again, you can see it is a group. I did one with a group, and you can see how it kind of falls apart as far as padding goes. That was one of my tests for it. Whereas if I go down here to the container down here, I have container, container, grid, and then container. So I have this multiple box set, so to speak, just testing things out in that regard. So yes, you can put this into any page that you want, page or post.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Mhm. All right.
Okay, Fada, do you still have a question?
Oh, I have tremendous needs, but that's all for tonight.
Okay, okay, you can lower your hand. Okay, Doug, please continue.
Okay, so this is another page here. Okay, and this one I did as a full width, full site. I just wanted something big on this one. Again, this is all free stuff on this one. There's no, there is no, pro version setting up in here. So interestingly enough, you come down here, of course, I have a container. I threw a grid in. I have a container over here on this side with a image, that I did in the backgrounds over here. So that's the image. And then I could actually say I wanted to put it to the right side. If I wanted to put it to the left side, it would show differently, the position of it. If I just put it in center, it would show in the center. I just wanted this one to be on the right. So these are kind of things that you would do to actually take a large image and how you want to feel it out where it belongs within that container. But the one thing I did do here, just to be clear, so if I go back here to the full container, of course, I went full width, and get back up there, full width, the colors are, this dark purple, back here, and I put it across the entire background so that this image kind of goes over top of it. And if you scroll down here and we start looking in here, again, this icon here is a headline, an H2. But again, I went with the icon here and I just removed the text. I just inlined it, sorry. Social. Wait a minute. Okay. No, I did. Yeah, there was remove the text. Otherwise, it generally, generally you just put any text in there, it will remove it for you and just show the icon, which is pretty neat. This portion down here, this was a grid, a container with a bunch of stuff. This is all generate blocks with the exception. I did use a row over here, which is pretty cool. I didn't really use this before and it worked out pretty nicely, just shoving everything in, all the different, these are all come with generate blocks also. You can actually pull in all the social icons. So one of the things it did here was this guy. I don't know. I know, Mike, you talked about let me get to the container, this container, and this image. I'm going to work with the container. So in the spacing area, there is an outer Z index. So if I type in 1, you'd see it actually brought it to the front. So the Z index, the higher the number, the more it comes forward, so to speak. And the reason why I had to do it twice was because this container was actually spotted at 2. Because if I took this out, normally these default to 0, right? So they're both off at the moment, but I want this guy because the one on the left is a container. The one on the right is the container. And the one on the right is takes precedence over the one on the left. So it's going, if it layers on top of the one on the left side, it's going to have it has a higher Z in, no, that's not correct. In other words, it takes precedence over the layering on this. if I drag this up, see if I can do this without botching something. Now you see that this guy has it. And let me put that back. I'm just going to redo. Okay. So if I did this outer, I'm on the first container, the one on the left here. Oh, and if
So
I
you're
did
overlaying the containers, not the blocks themselves, just that's how
Right.
that's work. Okay, good.
Yeah, the container can do so much, and that's where this outer Z index occurs. You can see it's one if I hide it, which I don't want to do. And so how I got this thing to overlap, because if you look at the grid, it's 2 containers. This container is set for 60%. This container is set for 40%, the one on the right. So what I had to do on this guy was to get it to, well, sorry, let me back up a step. I think what I did, I'm trying to think what I did here. Not the image, the container for this one. You can see this line down here. I don't know if you can, there's a blue line on that. But this container, if I go in into the spacing, you'll notice that the have 100 minus 120 pixels. I'm just going to zero this out. That would be normal, right? They just butt up against each other. I have no gap on the grid. But so if I go minus, let's say 25, you can start to see it goes, it's escaping the bounds of the container. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah,
but
I think it does, yeah.
yeah, but I've done that. And then when I go to actually look at the preview, it doesn't seem to take.
Okay, well, well,
That's
you-
probably on me. It's not on the
yeah.
blocks.
Well, so one of the things you'll have to do with these is actually really need to treat these things on how it's going to look on tablet, like that. Ugh, it's going to be hard to fix. And mobile you can do, and you can come down here and you can just say, let me remove all that spacing, which is what I think I did. Yeah, I just actually put negative margins on all of them in some way. Which you can do, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. But what you can, so sometimes it offsets it in a weird way, but you have to check on mobile and on tablet also, for any time you do any negative margins, because they get a little strange on some of the other device sizes. So that's how you park that behind the other thing. And of course, you have to make this, has to have a color, right? And we had to have it fade out. If I had put it up solid white, it wouldn't be as fun, right? So this is a little slider, which is opacity, and you can see it get lighter, 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 and then it actually just goes away. You can see the little 0 down here.
Oh, I have a question on that.
Yeah.
Okay, since the latest update to 5.9, and I'm not using GenerateBlocks, this is just on regular WordPress.
Mhm.
I've had trouble changing the color. It's like it says, here's your color choices. And before I could just put in a hex number and it doesn't work for me anymore.
On what block? Have you any block?
Any kind of a background, or where you're allowed
Okay.
like a button, for
Oh.
example.
Huh. Okay. So
And it's with 5.9, it's just the regular.
yeah, okay. So let's actually,
Am I the only one who's had problems with that since the update?
I haven't, but it's not saying that doesn't exist. So let me get in here and
I haven't tried it yet.
yeah, actually, there's some issues, I have to tell you. So this is just a regular button here. Let me click on it. So let me actually see, but making sure I am in a button here. Yes, I'm in the button. I can actually add text. It's so funny. I can't even remember how to do this. Anyway, so you have a color here. If I click this, and then you would go into the color area here
Right.
and select, so say select blue.
But what if you want something else?
Now, again, it may be theme dependent. I'm not sure what theme you're using. But it seems to work here.
But it's not letting you select that CSS. You can't type in the CSS.
Oh, so what you're saying is that you can't type in hash. Oh, you're right.
Yeah, I used to be able to just type in hash and then have the CSS right there. It doesn't, I'm not able to
That's
do
not
that.
good.
So.
Oh, there it is.
So, yeah, okay, so
Oh,
this little guy here, okay, that's where it is. Boy, talk
Oh,
about.
okay, show me
That
what you
would
did
have-
again.
That would annoy me. So this is the color, you're right, you can copy it, which is great, okay, but these little,
Click
show
those
detailed
things.
inputs. Right, and there's your.
Oh,
So they already put the hex in for you. And the other thing too is you can actually put in HSL or RGB, which is kind of cool.
okay. Well, click that hex and let's just see if we can change it to,
Well,
Uh,
HSL is a different type of way of color management. I use
Right.
HSL all the time. I love it. But and RGB is the standard, red, green, blue. But yeah, you can. Okay, so if we do this, let's just go. There we go. Red as can be.
okay,
Yeah, it's
very
interesting.
good.
Okay, so
Thank you, Doug.
And then, well, stumbling around in WordPress, I know.
What do they call that little toggle thing? I was trying to figure out that. Well,
I don't know. It looks like it's show detailed inputs when you hover over it.
could also be
I
called confusing.
don't know why they did that. That is just pretty
oh,
bad.
good.
Because
good
I
que-
think the same thing happened to me. And I just, when I saw you do it, I had a flashback. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I couldn't find that for a minute either.
Me too. Good question, Marianne.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
thank
yeah.
you.
Okay. Well, there it is. Okay. It should actually show one thing that I think is really pretty cool. And of course, it's a paid version to do this, but what they do have, again, this is in the home. I'm just going to go into the home. And, you saw this. These are what they call shapes. You can do shapes, they call them down here, and they have a whole list of whatever you want, triangles and things like that. You can put it at the top or the bottom. I don't know if it has, there's curves, right? There's angles and waves.
Let's click curves and see what it does.
Is that the paid version or the free?
This is the paid version, yeah. Oh, actually,
You have some
no,
free.
It's not. It's a free version, right,
Yeah.
Mike?
Yeah, there
Okay,
is
yeah.
some. I don't know if it's this much, but there's definitely patterns in the free version.
Yeah, so you can see here's the version that I just added here, just a curve over top. So, yeah, I mean, I don't use these that often, but good, sound free, great. So one of
And
the,
what is that called again? It's called
let me see, what
PG?
was it? Shapes.
shapes.
And they're for containers. Okay. So I don't think if I highlight the headline, it's not going to be there.
Nope.
And it's all for, I think, let me just see if it'll do on this container. Oh yeah, you can do it on an interior container also. Interesting.
They don't clip though. Like when you squeeze it to the phone, it's a smaller, complete shape.
Yeah, well, there you go. Here's a shape
Careful.
over
Yeah.
top. Not great, but still,
They bunch them up, so you got to choose accordingly.
Yeah, so anyway, so yeah, they do work on any container here. And again, with that variable, anyway. One of the things, let me just, I'm going to show you one thing here. So they do have, which I think is great. I don't know why they put it here, but they do. GenerateBlocks does have a template library, and it's for the pro version. So when I go here, I can select a category with team members, and you can just pop any of these things in there that you want. And I use it for just pulling apart how they did this. Okay, well, how did they get this kind of interesting overlay here? That was one of the things that I found out about, and I just kind of followed along with the program. But they have hero images, which I've used in a couple. They have a little slider. So if I could say, let me just drop this in. So I click it, and there it is. Now they didn't go full width, so I'll just make it full width, right? Change the image. Change your content, but you have these kind of different looks on the back. One of the things to be noted about, and I think, let me just say, I just want to make sure that Well, I got to get over to my list view there. So
Do the templates come with the pro version or the
Pro
free version
version.
as well?
They just come with the pro version. Just also be aware that all the images that you see here are on GenerateBlocks. You know, it's pulling from their library. It's an
Right.
Unsplash. So you would want to replace these because you don't want to be, you know, beholden to somebody else's, you know, images and things like that. So I always recommend replacing any images as cool as they may be. You can actually say, oh, this is from Unsplash. And you can just actually track that, you know, that there and probably find it over there to use. Yeah.
I have another question. Well, actually, it's not me. Kendra Wenzel has a question.
Uh-huh.
Can you save a set of containers / blocks as a page template?
I believe you can. So I have a container here. Let me see. I do not know. You can
reusable
copy it.
blocks.
You can do reusable blocks, yes. But I know what you're talking about is actually
Yeah, add your
saving-
reusable blocks right
yeah,
there.
you can. But you're talking
Careful
about
with that.
huh?
Careful
Yeah.
with the reusable block.
Yeah,
If you forget to make it unblock, you'll change all the blocks across your entire site.
yeah.
Been there.
But it'd be nice
Yeah,
to,
but-
if you did one yourself that you really liked and you wanted in your design library there, you can do, yeah, oh, I know, sorry.
Don't you make it a reusable block and then convert it to a regular block? That's
You
how you
can,
What if you forget?
but there's
Well,
local,
okay.
there's local templates that you can do and you can create them, you know, over here. So this again is in the paid version. So if I have local templates and I had, this is the box model, and if I edit it, then it becomes a thing. I can edit it. Now, how I got it, oh, sorry, now I know how I did it. Sorry, just vaguely remembered. So if I go to a page that has a, let's say this one here, if I go into the page free and I grab the container, and now you have one capability, so you can copy this whole thing, right? Copy to the clipboard, this container.
Mhm.
And if I go back now to, yes, I'm gonna leave it alone. And if I go to local templates and view all, and I can actually add a new template. There it is.
Hmm.
So it's a copy and paste into here. So then you have local templates. Now, I'm not really sure if you can save this, right?
I think you can also do this with the block element in the GeneratePress premium.
Yeah.
plugin.
That looks, that's related to GeneratePress, you know.
Yeah,
because
that's
it's
true.
not
true.
specifically a block thing, and it looks very, very powerful, you know, which
It is.
what I've seen. I would just love to see if they don't have a way to export, you know, as a JSON file or anything like that, at least not that I can see here.
I'm gonna
Which
see
is-
if I can make a design pattern out of it.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
but they have quite good patterns designs. Mike Oliver is a designer who's worked with them, and he's done a really bang up job on making very usable and good looking patterns that he has, you know, in these that block template that they have. I know there's other stuff, but you know, this is a box model thing. Oh, so this is so you can take a look at this. I accidentally made what looks like a wall image, you know, here's the frame and here's a little background, and put and again, this is using the box model. It should just show it to you just real quick how easy and simple this thing was, so that you get the idea. It's a container. Have a container here, and then here is the container with an image in it. There's nothing I can do with the image. There's nothing I can do, but I can do it with the container. What I did was all the spacing. So I put padding around it, you know, so the padding can come out if I want. I put the border size. Oops, oh, this is locked. Sorry, let me get back to. And again, you can pick the colors for it. So if I want the borders to lock, this thing is very handy to have. So if I want a bigger pattern around here. And what I did to get this thing was it's an image in sorry, it's a container. And the background is one of these little browsers. It was this guy. I put that little weird looking thing, looked pretty cool. And then I could actually come down and change the opacity instead of it looking like that, which is kind of harsh. You know, you just drop the opacity down, give it a little flavor. So very interesting things you can do again with the box model. And thank goodness that they have that ability, you know, with the sizings and everything.
Okay.
Okay.
This is really a great presentation. You've definitely introduced me to something new.
Yeah.
Any other questions from anyone? Because
Yeah.
there's somebody, does one person have a hand up? Oh, Robert Lilly.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is not related to GenerateBlocks. It has to do with in the admin bar. What is the name of that plugin that adds all of those features that you're using here? I know you mentioned it last month, but I didn't write it down.
Oh, you're talking about all these things up here?
Yes,
Yes, one of my favorites is Admin Page Spider.
Page Spider.
Yeah, and it's a, and you can see how useful it is because
Yes.
I mean, I think it's just it's a real simple plugin, doesn't do a lot, which is great, but what it does do is really wonderful. Actually, let me see if I can go. It's this guy. And it's a pro version. It's like $20, $25 per year, and then it goes down to $15 a year after that for unlimited ones. So pretty good. So what you can do, and I'm just going to go down to the settings here, and I'll show you some of the cool things if you're running any of these: Beaver Builder, Elementor, Oxygen, Brizy, you know, Visual Composer. So it does custom post types, and of course, all the generate press elements are in here. So here's elements, you know, Alicia, if you wanted to give me a whole list of them down here. These are the global block templates, right? The locals, and here's the global styles. And so if I uncheck the local styles, you'll see that, you know, once I save it, this button will go away.
So it's $4 for one site
Yeah.
and $25 for unlimited.
I've used it. The guy was a developer for Beaver Builder, did a lot of work with them, you know, because I've been a Beaver Builder person for quite a long time in some ways. And I found it and I just said, this is it. I put it on everything.
Yeah.
Everything. And also if advanced custom fields, you know, you can put your your advanced custom fields groups up there and just jump right to it if you want.
Sweet. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. Uh-oh, I got an update. Cadence. Okay. Yeah, I got it.
Hey, Doug, is there anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I think it's getting a little late. I could go on a lot longer, but you know.
I think we have one question from Michael
Sure.
Noter.
Yeah.
Yeah, real quick, like, and this is great, Doug. You've really helped me understand a lot about this particular plugin. Going back to the Z index. And so you're doing the overlaps between the two containers. And so you basically you just set the margins to beyond and you get it to show up that way. Does that change the Z index or what's the purpose?
No, the Z index is separate from the margins. Basically, it's a layer, like something, you know, something is above in front of the other thing. That's all the Z index does. Is it? See, you can see.
Which one's the okay?
Which one goes first?
Is that specific to the block or is that the Z index?
It's specific to the container.
Okay.
Yeah. So like on here, let me see. It's oh, I did get there. Good. I don't know if I had the Z index. Was this the one that I had the Z index on? Let me see. I don't know. So if I go down to container here, and it's in the spacing area. Yes. So there's an inner container. Does that work? I guess it doesn't necessarily. So yeah, the container over here on this side, it's in the spacing. And I don't think I did. So it again, and it's behind it, right? And I put it in front and now it's in front. Now, both of these have opacity changes on them. So that's why it doesn't look that jarring. And so this again is one of those things that just, you know, I put that pro hover effect on it, they call it. But this, all you need to do is bump one up or bump one down. You can go down it. So this actually makes it disappear because it went behind the container.
That's okay.
If that makes sense, you know?
Mhm.
So there you go. And
All
then
right.
once you hit it, you just have to deal with it. You know, you can leave it alone. So, and that is again on the container. Now, if I say like, you know, I want this one, so you can override it, I believe. Let's see. Yep, there you go. So long as I went to 2, actually, if I go to 1, because now they both have the same Z index, but the one on the right, which is in the cascade, comes later, is the one that rules. You know, so
right.
if I went to 0, it would be back. So the idea is to leave it alone and just change one or the other as needed.
Well, thank you, because now I have to hunt and peck with it, but at least I understand the
Yeah,
purpose of it.
it's in the spacing area of a container. Okay.
Okay.
It's
Thanks.
a nice look. It's a nice look.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times when you can use something like that.
Yeah. It's and it's fairly easy to do once you get the hang of what layers over top. Again, the margin, you know, the minus margin on the left side, pushing it over. I mean, you could push it over quite a lot if you wanted to, you know, to take it over like that, you know. So it's really, I like this kind of look. Anyway, I'll update that one.
Okay. Well, this is great.
Okay.
We've had a very patient group, but Doug, you've had a lot of great information.